Morning and welcome to the Standing Policy Committee on Community Services for Tuesday, April 15, 2025. I'm your chairperson, Councillor Vivian Santos from the Port Douglas Ward, together with my council colleagues, Councillor Matt Allard, Councillor Sean Dobson, and Councillor Cindy Gilroy. We also have numerous members from the Winnipeg Public Service, but particularly Senior Committee Clerk Peter Prinsloo. We are wanting to quickly acknowledge that we are meeting on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional homelands of the Red River Métis, that we all have the privilege of living on. Also acknowledge our ancestral territory lands, and our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake Band number 40 in territory number 3, together with our neighbors in territory number 5, where our hydroelectricity comes from. Moving on, we have an appeal, I believe, that we have to deal with first. Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
I move that the minutes of the meeting held on March 5th be taken as read and confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Yes, all those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. Moving on to appeals, if we can have our clerk bring us through. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Neighborhood Developability Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the appellant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the appeal. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the appellant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. Please note that when your name is called, it is your opportunity to speak. However, you are not obligated to do so. Item 1 is an appeal against the Neighborhood Livability Bylaw number 1 of 2008 at 737 Alexander Avenue. So at this time, we'll hand it over to our public service if the committee wishes to have an overview on the matter.
Yeah, I'd like an overview of the matter, please. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Martin. I'm the acting manager for licensing and bylaw enforcement. The Neighborhood Livability Bylaw was put into place to regulate maintenance of properties and other aspects of neighborhood livability in order to develop and maintain safe, orderly, viable, and sustainable communities, and to promote and maintain the health, safety, and well-being of its residents. The majority of our service requests for bylaw enforcement services comes via 311. When a service request is received, bylaw enforcement officers attend the property and inspect. Officers assess conditions or bylaw violations and issue compliance orders if necessary. It's important to note all notifications and orders are sent in writing to the address provided by the owner to our Winnipeg Assessment and Taxation Department and served to the owner of the property via registered mail in accordance with the Winnipeg Charter. All compliance orders include the officer's name, a direct phone number on the order as well, contact for our office. This is done to facilitate communication directly between the owner and the bylaw enforcement officer. Officers re-attend the property after the compliance state to confirm the conditions are brought to the state of compliance. When conditions are not, the officers will then begin enforcement. The intent of the enforcement process is to ensure owners are aware of their obligations and maintain their property in compliance with the bylaw. So the summaries for this current property of 737 Alexander, License and Bylaw Enforcement Office, our office received a complaint via 311 on March 7th, 2025. A bylaw enforcement officer attended on March 7th, 2025, observed garbage on the property and issued a compliance order with a compliance deadline of March 17th. Subsequent to that, the appellant registered an appeal to the order. License and the bylaw provided photos for the review. I'll describe the observations and the bylaw deficiencies that were observed. This property is a single family dwelling located at the corner of Lulu Street and Alexander. The house is partially burnt and surrounded by temporary fencing. Garbage was observed on the property, including but not limited to scrap wood, scrap metal, vegetation waste, cushions, loose litter, and rubbish. The garbage was not restricted to being within the fence, but scattered throughout the property. So the timeline, once again, March 7th, we received the complaint. March 7th, the officer attended. March 7th, a garbage order was issued. March 15th, we received an email requesting a call back to discuss the order with the owner. And then on March 17th, the order was appealed. Part of the submission by the appellant was to have a discussion with our department. On March 20th, the coordinator for the area did call the appellant to attempt to work with the owner in regards to the questions with regards to the garbage. At that time, the owner stated he just wanted to continue with the appeal. As of April 9th, when we re-attended to view the sign for the appeal, the property was still in non-compliance, which means there is garbage through it. A little bit of further history to this. So obviously we have a database with regards to this. Our office has been on site prior, including to this 35 times. We've had 15 service requests, which are complaints via 311. And we've issued 8 compliance orders to this property previous to this order. And with that, the majority were corrected by the property owner, but one of them actually did go to remediation, which the city does, and charged to the property tax. That's all.
Any questions, clarification? I do have a question. I do know maybe this might be the question for the meeting. But do you happen to know when the fire occurred on the property?
I believe it was November of 2024. Not 100%, but I believe that's what it was.
And I can see here that several of the complaints were really neighbors that were really concerned about the property.
Yeah, and just as a side note as well, it's about 4 or 5 houses away from a school. So, yeah, again, in context, I could see why the neighbors, we get that a lot through our office about certain properties that are burnt out or, falling apart, that sort of stuff.
One question, the material that I see within the fencing, is that a concern too, or?
Yes. So garbage must not accumulate on property at all.
Okay.
Again, we're not asking the appellant to go into the house and grab whatever they can. We're asking them to keep the property free of garbage on the property. So there is stuff contained within the fence, as well, but it's still a violation. But there's also stuff outside of the fence, in the back driveway, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay.
And can you just remind us, because I know we always get in our office, they never gave us sufficient time to comply. And I do see that you have a registered letter. So you have a letter that goes to the property in question.
Correct.
And then you have a registered letter that goes to the address that you have on file with the owner.
So all of the correspondence via registered mail goes to the property owner's address as they give it to assessment and taxation. So it does not go to, so let's just say this is a rental property, and we get this a lot. So
Yeah.
let's just say this is a rental property. Property owners do keep that as their address of service via assessment and taxation. So that's where the correspondence would go. And again, it's up to the property owner to make sure that it's the proper address for correspondence that they can get it, right? So via registered mail under the charter, it's specific to the owner of the address as it relates to assessment and taxation. And again, when we come across and we have that communication where somebody would say, oh, I'm sorry, like I didn't get it, like it goes to, we remind them, we say, okay, make sure you update it, right? We'll work with you and give you more time. And again, that's why when we get an appeal or we get communication, we like to talk to people and figure out exactly what they know and why it came to this point and how do we remedy it, right? So
And can you remind us again what the time frame is for compliance from the time you go there and deal with the complaint to the time when they have to comply?
it's about 8 business days for garbage. So under the charter, it's only, our obligation is 3 days. So after 3 days, it's deemed served, and then we could take enforcement action. but reasonable in fairness, right? We give them a little bit more time. Again, via registered mail, the communication is there, please call up so that we can work through on a solution to get this done. Again, we'd much rather the property owners take care of it and do it. You know, resources with the city of Winnipeg, go ahead and do that. That way we don't have to do it, but it's about a business day.
Thank you. Right.
Okay, so at this time, we'll pull up the appellant, Mr. Jacob Vizot. Sir, if you just want to grab a seat at the end of the table there.
Good morning. I just wanted to make sure, I believe I sent in what I have here before me. And my vision isn't so great, so if I read this straight off, I very well might stutter quite a bit, and I'll do the best I can. But if you have the evidence that I have here, I'm just depending on how you want to do it, if read it over and ask me questions, or I can continue to do as best as I can. I'll get through it, but just want.
Clerk, was it the same document that's within the exhibit?
That's right, yes. Starting with exhibit number.
Number 2? Okay, I believe we have it here. Yeah, we have it here. Thank
Okay,
you.
so should I read through it or?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
however you
okay.
want to present, yeah.
So this is the basis of my argument here is based on an email that I sent to the bylaw officer requesting first clarification, and that was Anthony Sinclair. So I'll just read the email that I sent. Dear Mr. Sinclair, we are writing in response to the compliance order issued by the City of Winnipeg Community Service Department, March 7th, 2025, concerning the property at 737 Alexander Avenue, with the address. The order alleges a violation of the neighborhood bylaw number 1, 2008, due to the accumulation of garbage, specifically scrap wood, vegetable waste, cushions, and loose litter, and requires corrective action by March 17th, 2025. We respectfully submit that the current condition of the property does not contravene the bylaw as alleged, and we request clarification and an opportunity to discuss the matter further. And so, property context and inspection on March 14th, 2025, we visited the property intending to address the order. The site, a demolition zone following a fire on October 25th, 2024, is secured by fencing. Our inspection revealed no significant uncontained debris that could be safely removed under the current conditions. The debris, primary construction-related remains, is embedded in ice and snow and contained within the fenced area. We have photographic evidence of this, which we are prepared to share, and we kindly ask that you specify the exact garbage cited on the order based on these images. Relevant bylaw provisions. The Neighborhood Livability Bylaw number 12008 defines garbage in section 2 to include construction and demolition waste, wrecked, dismantled, partially dismantled, inoperative, discarded and abandoned trailers, machinery, or vehicle parts thereof. Any deserted or discarded article, product or goods of manufacture. The debris on the property, consisting of scrap wood, cushions, and other fire-related materials, aligns with these definitions, particularly construction and demolition wastes due to its origin from the demolition process. However, the bylaw also imposes obligations that we believe support our position. Section 1(4), parentheses 1, safety maintenance. Properties must be maintained to prevent health, safety, fire, and accidental hazards. The fencing, an accessory structure under section 2, contains the debris, restricting public access and mitigating hazards. Attempting to remove the debris currently frozen in ice and snow would pose safety risk to us or workers, potentially contravening this section by creating hazards rather than preventing them. 2, section 6, parentheses 1 and 6, parentheses 2, garbage accumulation and spread. Section 1, parentheses 1, or sorry, section 6, parentheses 1, prohibits garbage accumulation on a property, and section 6, parentheses 2, forbids it from blowing or being carried onto other properties or streets. The debris is confined within the fencing, preventing its spread, and per section 6, parentheses 2, given this containment, we argue that it does not constitute an unlawful accumulation under section 6, parentheses 1, especially considering the property status as a secure demolition site post-fire. 3, section 5, property value maintenance. Properties must not substantially depreciate the value of neighboring land or buildings. The fencing mitigates visual and safety impacts, suggesting that the current state does not significantly affect nearby properties' value, aligning with this provision. And also, so the next section, defense based on the circumstances. We assert the following. Safety considerations. The debris encased in ice and snow makes removal impractical and hazardous at this time, aligning with section 4, parentheses 1, focus on safety. The fencing serves its purpose as an accessory structure by containing the debris, reducing risks. Containment. The debris does not violate section 6, parentheses 2, as it is not blowing or spreading beyond the property, thanks to the fencing. The containment also supports compliance with section 6, parentheses 1 in the context of a demolition site. Reasonableness. The debris results from an uncontrollable event, the fire, and is confined to the property, defined in section 2 as, can't read that, sorry, under a, thank you, under a single title. Given its temporary nature and containment, it should not be treated as typical garbage requiring immediate removal under the bylaw. Request for dialogue and intent to appeal. We are concerned that the order may not fully account for the property's unique circumstances, particularly as this is an ongoing separate appeal related to the site, raising questions about fairness and timing. I will stop there, and at the time, I've got 3 different departments on me about this property, so without accusation, it felt like I was being harassed at this point. I'd like to retract that. I've since learned that these are 3 separate departments and have nothing to do with each other, but I did not know that at the time. It just felt like the city of Winnipeg was three orders in a very succinct time. Without a satisfactory resolution, we intend to appeal the order submitting the $250 fee as outlined in section 106. To avoid this, we propose a telephone discussion on Monday, March 17th, 2025 to clarify the debris in question and explore solutions. Please suggest a convenient time to reach us at my phone number. Thanks for considering our response. We look forward to reply, hope, and result. That was, I believe that we sent this in on Friday. So there was a weekend there and we didn't hear back from Anthony. And so I proceeded with the appeal, and I did receive a phone call from a different gentleman, not Anthony, kind of inquiring about working with me. But as I had already said, I had already, because I did not hear back the first time I had to, so I've already written a check and gone through the process. So I'd have to see the appeal out because I'd be out $250. So that's the basis of my argument.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Dobson.
I have a question. Is it cleaned up now?
So as of today, only partially, I've been able to remove partial scrap wood that was outside the fence because it was not encapsulated or frozen. There still is a few things on the outside of the fence that are still in the ground. And that was, I want to say, about 7 days ago that I went back to the property. So, assuming, because we had a couple hot, warmer days, assuming that's not encased, I can return to that and remove it. But the stuff within the fence, again, is my argument that this is not garbage that has been placed there. This has been, all debris has been there as a result of the fire. And my understanding is the fencing was to serve multiple
Okay,
purposes.
so my apologies, but I'm looking at a picture that was dated April 9th, which was not too long ago. And it shows a tremendous amount of debris outside as well as inside the fence.
I
And
can't
this is
see that.
like a month after the March 7th.
Yes, so I'm not talking about I guess I can't speak to that because I'm here today to appeal the original order, not but there has, I can't, and plus I do not have access to the pictures that you're seeing there. And so I can only tell you what I know. And I know that I did remove some of that on the outside of the fence, but not all of it.
So I've got a lot of boarded up vacant buildings in my area. And the reason why it's really important to clean up those properties is because that garbage that's sitting inside the fence could actually, somebody can light that on fire. So, and I do see a lot of debris that could be cleaned up regardless, and I do understand that when a fire does happen, water, you know, there might be some parts that can't be cleaned up, but I do see a lot in here that should be cleaned up. How come you didn't try to clean up what could be cleaned up?
Well, as stated before, and I'm not speaking as of April 9th or what I'm talking about when the order was issued and the time period that I had. I believe that is the argument I'm making. Like, there's ice and snow, it's encased. It's actually more dangerous for myself or to hire someone to get in that fence and try and loosen that debris from the ice and snow. And as of March, I mean, I didn't take daily temperatures, but we can all agree that it was much colder than it is currently right now. And so within the fence, again, and my plea is to show me within the bylaws that I've shown here where it's unreasonable or it's reasonable to expect when debris is locked in ice or snow or in the ground, more than anything, safety reasons, but there's other reasons as to why the judgment of the officer at the time could have come around in April and given the exact same order. Like, I'm not trying to duck away from responsibilities here, but again, in context, I had two other orders loosely based on that, or not loosely based, directly based on that property. And so this feels like, in context, it was, okay, this is common sense. I can't get in there to remove the debris from a frozen state. And when I had made the attempt to communicate with them, for whatever reason, Anthony chose not to communicate back. And so,
Do you have any plans on tearing down this building?
yes, and that was another order that I have previously addressed here at the council. So yes, absolutely.
Question? Okay, so, remind me again, Mr. Clerk, when the appeal was posted online? Was it posted online, just like last week?
Yes, with the regular agenda publication.
Okay,
4 business days.
and then was the appellant given notice that this was posted online?
That information would have been included in the scheduling letter, which communicates that agenda materials would be published on Venus.
Okay, so you're stating, Mr. Sorry, I can't pronounce your last name. Verso, that you've never seen the pictures that are in the exhibit here?
No, I presented my own pictures based on my property inspection on Friday, just before, it would have been March 14th, I believe.
Okay, because there are exhibits to this appeal. I do see some dates here, March 7th. And then further down, there are dates of April 9th. So I'm talking about the exhibit that's available online, not your pictures, but the pictures of the officers that were
Oh,
provided.
I see. Yes, what I received was registered mail of, this is the last correspondence I received, was a registered mail stating the date and time of the appeal, and that I had to obtain signage and post it for 7 days before the appeal. That was the last. So I have not received any correspondence regarding, I guess, the bylaw officers' pictures or evidence thereof.
Well, it is a public document, so it is available online and you're able to access it. But in looking at the photos here, I can completely understand about the frozen, like things are frozen. I get that, but I guess I kind of have to question some of the things that you said in your letter with respect to it being construction material. And it doesn't contravene the bylaw, but when I look through the pictures, there are like couch cushions. I see that, and it looks like some siding that was taken down and put outside of the fence. And it's still there from the March 7th date to the April 9th date. So, which doesn't look like it's covered in snow or anything, or it's frozen. So,
Sorry, what day was this?
well, April 9th.
Oh, okay, yes, yeah.
There's photos of the couch cushions that are there, and this looks like,
Is that outside the fence, man?
and it looks like there's some siding or anything that's actually in the driveway, which is not
Yes.
encapsulated in the fence. So there is stuff, debris or construction material that is outside, and that
Yes.
doesn't look like it's been cleaned up.
And I'm not contesting that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes, go ahead.
I'm just back to the delegates presentation, perhaps for questions for the public service, but we're considering the original order. Like we're talking about actual conditions of the site, but the delegate is saying that he's not talking about the actual conditions of the site, but he's appealing the order. So procedurally, I'm struggling to understand. I think at issue is whether or not we agree with the public service, whether or not the order itself was a proper order and that it had, and point blank, I guess, whether or not the public service was correct in the order that they issued based on the bylaw. I think that's the question that we're trying to answer. And I think that the delegate has made that, has attempted to make that clear to us. And I guess I can pose that as a form of a question to the delegate, because I heard the delegate say, specify the appeal was about the original order a few times when we were getting into actual conditions.
Mhm. The actual
Perhaps I
order
can-
says garbage must not be allowed to accumulate upon the property.
Right.
And
So,
from the pictures that I'm seeing, just to clarify, from the pictures I'm seeing in the exhibit, Councillor Allard, there
Yeah.
is garbage accumulated on the property. And I believe the appellant is arguing whether or not it's construction material, what's contained within the fence.
Right. And the picture is dating
March 7th and April 9th.
and the order.
March 7th was ordered March 9th, and he had to comply by March 14th. And he has not since complied, and he has appealed instead. Does that make sense?
Well, he can appeal. The applicant could appeal and comply at the same time, right?
Question?
Just back, yeah, just back to the question is, are we? We're ruling on whether or not the order was valid or not. Not about the actual conditions today, I think.
So yeah, so the order itself was dated March 7th. The order is still open. So at that time when the order was issued, was it valid?
Right,
At
That's
April,
the appeal.
April 9th?
Yeah.
Is it valid?
Mhm.
Today, is it valid? Because the order is still open. So again, what we're here today is the appellant is appealing the order. So if council has two choices, it's sorry, Peter, if I'm jumping into your territory, but it's either it was issued and it was valid or it's not valid. So again, is there garbage accumulation on the property at the time of the order, the issuance of the order is basically it. So it's either a yes or a no.
Right. Okay,
Yeah,
At the time,
Yeah, and do you want to clarify that with the appellant? Like,
yes, I
clarify.
think we're into that part where maybe the appellant can address that at this time, but I understand at the time, it's really like that we're
Correct.
trying to determine based on the appeal.
Regardless of, you know, and again, further to what the appellant is saying, regardless of if it's in ice, snow or whatever.
Yeah.
Was there garbage accumulation issued? So sorry, at the time of the issuance of the order.
So even if the property were today pristine, the question would still be whether or not public service cared or not when they issued the order.
Correct. That
I
is
guess
what
that's
the
the point I'm
appeal is.
trying to make.
That is what the appeal is.
Okay.
Is the order, the issuance of the order of March 7th.
Right, okay, and Madam Chair, through you to the delegate wants to respond.
Okay, so I'm gonna just re-summarize. My intent here is to show a few things. That one, I wanted to work with Anthony for a solution. I have no problem working with the city on things of this nature. Absolutely not. Been a landlord for 20 years, and it's always in my best interest to do so. I wanted to work with him. I did not receive that communication and clarification. I also wanted to show that everything, including the cushions that you had mentioned, is not accumulation of garbage as I know it, but as a result of the fire on October 25th, meaning there's been no garbage dumped inside the fence. I also wanted clarification on, based on the bylaws, not opinions, but based on how the bylaw reads, as to if a demolition site is fenced and the criteria is, as mentioned in the argument, is met, would that not take into consideration the issuance of the order itself? The third thing is, I have to imagine, as a taxpayer, this is my opinion, that there is some form of judgment that is given to the bylaw officer when he inspects a site as to the reasonableness of expectations of, yes, there is, so it's two-pronged. I'm arguing that the order itself very well should not have been, had to be given based on the demolition site. It's not a regular situation. Story that I only know as Martin had listed a history of 35 accounts. That's all very valid. I had tenants in there. Those are normal day, run-of-the-mill day situations where a tenant lets things go through the orders issued. That's more normal than a fire site. And so my appeal on that is two-pronged, is that also when the bylaw officer goes out and sees that things are encased in snow and ice, and there's no real solution to this, I'm at a loss as to why it was issued at that time when there's nothing that could be done about it in a safe manner. And
There's reasonableness.
yes, yeah.
So I guess for time frame, when did the fence go up?
The fire took place October 25th. I believe it was between October 25th and November 1st that fence had gone up.
Mhm. And then you applied for a demolition permit when?
That's a completely different subject, but it turns out that the fire damage was such that a hazard, it's called a wet tear down. I guess there's this,
Asbestos?
yeah, but it was so damaged that we couldn't get the report, and we didn't know that until after. And so now I'm in the process of getting a permit to get it demolished. And that's proving to be very difficult at the time, at the moment.
I guess a little bit, thank you. A little bit of my challenge is in the pictures, I do see debris that should be taken out that isn't encased. And I do.
Agreed. Agreed.
So the challenge that I think we have is I do think the bylaws have some discretion, but when they see garbage accumulating and that can cause another fire to occur, they have to take action, right? So I do feel that they've done their job in doing that, because if I was the property owner, I'd have to be there every day ensuring that things, you know, as soon as the weather warms up, you're starting to take things out. And so I do feel that they were doing their job by making sure that the neighboring house is kept safe. And I do see stuff in here where there's debris that clearly isn't encased in the.
As of, oh, so you're referring to March 7th. That's clearly not encased in
Yeah.
snow.
Yep, there's a branch that could be taken out or partly taken out. There's
Oh.
garbage lying around. There's plastic from the actual house that is not encased in snow. So yeah.
This is
you have a-
within the fence?
Yep.
Okay,
within
that's, again, I have to reiterate, is there any safety issues if you were in my spot to enter that, a hazard site like that and attempt to remove anything where there is snow, ice, or debris underneath the snow that could puncture your shoes? The safety issue there is what I'm presenting. I am still at this point, what I'm looking for is not only a reprieve on the $250 for the appeal, but I guess to present the idea to the bylaw hierarchy is that if there's no communication, if there's an attempt for communication to work with the bylaw officer and there's no response, and I haven't been forced to appeal, and then I'm being questioned that it's still there to this day and as of April 9th, right? I'm like, common sense would say, if a bylaw needs to be issued and I have a March 17th deadline, and there's no way to obtain the removal of that debris, you've put me in a situation that I feel is, my hands are tied almost. Like that I'm gonna either, if it went to the city, what would the city have done? Either they're gonna have to wait to remove that under the same conditions, or they would have to essentially get machinery in there, take out the fence, get the machinery in there to take that out. But it's only one slip, and about, whether I'm hiring someone or I'm doing it myself, safety has to be at the forefront, and I'm questioning the judgment of the timing of this. If Anthony comes around today or last week or April 9th and does the exact same order, I'm more able to, I would still question about the degree within the fence. But I hope it's reasonable at least to see why I am at a loss of what I could have done in that, when that order was issued.
Madam Chair, I'm just like running through all the bylaw versus what I'm seeing. And my colleagues pulled up here some, I think it would fall into the category of scrap wood maybe, or
Right.
Like along the fence, outside of the fence. And that was on April 19th.
April 19th.
Yes, we have inspection photos from April 19th, 2025.
It's not April 19th right now, it's April 15th.
Sorry, April 9th, 2029.
Right.
And there appears to be, what was that?
Garbage.
Be construct. Yeah, there's waste outside there's waste.
Outside the fence,
outside the
yes.
fence.
If we want to treat that as a separate issue, I'm more than happy to have that removed. There was no, again, as far as I'm concerned, and this is my education here, I understand the work order is still open, so that's fine. I can completely work with that. However, I didn't know that, and so I was simply waiting for for this appeal hearing to happen to present my case. I have no problem getting rid of anything outside of the fence. If there's anything still inside the fence that, again, I mean, it is, again, it's up to the council. I realize this. It's just my interpretation of what I see in the bylaw. If it's not accumulating, I guess that's the term that we need to define here, because does that mean that people are throwing stuff over and it is accumulating, or is this from the original fire, which it is? And it's safe, it's not blowing out of the fence. The fence is secured right now. And if it's safe to get in the fence based on the council's decision here today, then I'm more than happy to follow through with that. At the time is when it's not, I felt like I was left with no real solution at all, and there was no communication with Anthony. In fact, the person who followed up was not Anthony as well. It was another gentleman. I just can't remember his name. I think it was Jeff, but it wasn't Anthony himself.
Let's just try to, if we don't mind, Madam Chair, just try to keep names out of it, just bylaw for us. Can I ask I just, To Peter, just if I ask the administration questions, is that okay at this time?
We will have a separate section where.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where we have
okay.
conversations with the administration to clarify, and then the appellant has an opportunity to come
So
back and
then we
speak.
have a-
Do you want to do that? We can do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind asking.
Sure. I have some clarification questions too
Okay.
for the admin.
If there's a lot of questions for the appellant.
I just need one clarification. I think I've heard statements being made about the time that you had filed for your appeal or the email that you had sent in was a Friday. And that bylaw officers did reach out to you on a Monday, and you had stated that you would continue to move forward with the appeal and not work with the administration. Is that a correct assumption?
No, it's not.
Okay, could you clarify the timing?
So on March 14th is when I went to the site. That was on a Friday.
Okay.
I had sent Anthony this copy of this email that I read for you
Which is on a Friday,
on a Friday. Yeah.
okay, Friday afternoon, so I
Right.
don't have the date of when you sent it here, sorry.
Yeah.
What's the time that you sent the email to
This was Anthony Sinclair.
Friday, what time? Like Friday morning, Friday afternoon, there's no time of when you sent the email to Community Services Department. What time on Friday?
Here, give me a moment. I can just bring it up. This was sent. It just gives me the date, doesn't give me the exact time unless there's something
That's fine,
that I'm missing.
but
Oh, I'm
someone from the department did call you back on Monday or
No,
Tuesday?
no, it was after I've already filed for the appeal.
When did you file for the appeal?
So just to answer your question, so I went on the site on March 15th. I sent the email Saturday, March 15th at 12:34 PM. Yeah. And then Monday was the deadline. No call, I did not receive a call. So that was the 17th. I believe Martin had said another gentleman called me on March 20th.
Okay.
I had, the reason I had done that on the Monday, because evidently it was the final day of and since I hadn't heard back from Anthony, that's
So you appealed, you filed your appeal and paid your appeal on the Monday,
on the Monday, yeah.
okay?
The
And then you had a gentleman call you on the 20th.
I thought it was longer than that, but if he has record showing the 20th.
But somebody did call you back from the department.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and at that point in conversation, was there discussions about remedying the land or cleaning up the land or anything like that?
Yes, there was. I'm gonna go ahead and say his name was Jeff. Martin would be able to clarify that. I think his name was Jeff. I explained to him that it's still, my same argument I hear. It's still encased in the ground. And because I had already started the process and paid the $250, that I have to go through with it now because based on my communication previously. So that was why I didn't he said, well, okay, well, can we work to get this? And I said, at this time, well, I've already gone through the appeal process. I'll take it to them and we'll see where it goes. I said, quite bluntly, I presented my case. I said, I can't do anything until it's unfrozen.
So to clarify, Community Services did offer an opportunity to work with you
After the appeal,
after you filed the appeal.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just one more question for
Mhm.
clarification. So I understand that you filed an appeal on March 17th. I understand the order was issued March 7th. Was there anything, I'm just curious into your thought process as to why you wouldn't perhaps agree with the officers in part, I'm back to the loose garbage outside of the fenced area. Regardless of what's happening inside the fenced
Yes.
area, on April 9th, there was still like loose stuff, garbage around the fence, so
If there's an assumption that,
why not do that piece of it, I guess?
okay, well, I have pictures of the debris that I did remove, that I could remove from the property.
Before or after April 9th?
After, well, I say it was about 7 days ago. It was within that time period, so it could have been after April 9th, could have been April, it was within the last 7 days. And I did remove what I could. And so it was, but I have pictures to show that. It's just that obviously I can't send that to you right now. But regardless, I still have no problem going back to the property to remove the things outside of the fence today, right now. That's it. But April 9th is an arbitrary number that I had no idea that the city of Winnipeg bylaw guys returned to the site as well. I did that on my own to remove what I could. And so I don't understand. I know there's some debris that's still outside of the fence because I could not remove it. Otherwise I would have.
Did you check the date of the photos that you took?
Yeah, sure.
And perhaps, Mr. Clerk, like, is it advisable, possible to receive new information at this point from the appellant? Because I mean, if we saw timestamps on photos, that would be as verbal-
Part of his presentation.
verbal
Should
presentation.
be fine.
Yeah, as long as I can have a copy thereof to include in the minutes.
No, there's a lot of metadata on photos.
Then while you're looking for the photo, I do have one follow-up question. Isn't it not reasonable to assume that demo sites generally be kept clean and in good condition? Like we see a lot of construction that occurs and that are a lot of sites that are in demolition. I would like to assume that these construction sites or demo sites should be kept in good condition with the fencing around. Like, is that a good assumption? That's a question you can answer. I want the appellant to answer the question because he's considering it a demo site.
The bylaw I checked doesn't have specific language about demolition. It's about like the site in general.
Is that a question?
I'll ask the question of your name to clarify.
It was. Let's see, I get the metadata here. Okay, it was later than I thought. So it was April 3rd when I went and cleared the debris that I could from the property.
Okay, so the pictures we're looking at are after that. And there still appears to be debris that I guess would be movable. I mean, don't see any ice casing around any of the debris. If that's perhaps when you went on the 3rd, there was.
Yeah, there was. So if the order is, to simplify this, if the order is still open, and Anthony and I still needs to close this, on the stuff outside of the fence, I can have that cleared out immediately. And so that could be put to bed. However, the question about what's within the fence is still an issue of safety to if it's deemed that I have to go in there and somehow get it cleaned out. It's still safety, but it's much less than it was in March when there was snow and ice and debris covered with snow and no visible indications of what was underneath the snow to injure.
If there's asbestos on site, I think that's a valid argument in terms of safety. I don't know that this bylaw addresses that, but.
You would be involved.
Well, if you're disturbing stuff beside a fire site that has asbestos in it.
As far as I can see, and Anthony never addressed this, but the stuff contained in there is contained. is not blowing around, and that's what I read in the bylaw. So if there's garbage or loose things or loose wood or siding and it's getting outside the fence and blowing into other people's yards, then I can clearly see that, okay, that's a violation of the bylaw. But I don't see that if it's fence contained and it's part of the demolition site, my understanding is that should be isolated unto itself and left for professionals to discard. The insurance process is ongoing and I'm in pursuant of that to have it demolished.
So my question, I don't know if you heard it while you're going through your phone. Is it correct to assume that demo sites should generally be kept clean and good condition? Just like in the general sense, like to be kept good and clean?
Well,
For like professional presentation, user experience, functionality, like if you're, that's would be my question, just to
Well,
kind of assume.
but the bylaw does address that,
Mhm.
right? But it's again, in its unique circumstance, it does not affect the value of homes in and around I mean, you could say on one level it does, but the very nature of the fire itself would satisfy that it does. But that's in the process of on a big higher level of being removed. As long as,
At a demo site.
well, it is a demo site if there's fencing around it, right?
My question I'm asking is it correct to assume that demo sites should generally be kept clean and in good condition?
Well, there's no one, so I would answer that by if the fencing is compromised, then the fencing needs to be secured, meaning that people have been able to get inside the fence to, do damage, be curious or throw garbage in there, then the site itself has to be secured. So I would accept all full responsibility of keeping the fencing tightly secured so that no citizen could get inside that. But that is why the fencing is around there, is to keep people out and provide a surrounding that is, danger. So if there's no loose garbage getting outside of the site, it's part of the demolition and there's no accumulation of garbage. It is the original site that was on fire. Even the couch cushion came from the house that was on fire. It's fire damaged. It's not someone throwing garbage up over a 6-foot fence. And so that's what I'm arguing is this, it feels like harassment in this case because I'm already getting it demolished. I'm getting the permit, seeking the permit for it and then having the service done. But in the meantime, this is secured and it's a unique circumstance that I feel that the bylaws, it meets those satisfactions of how the bylaw is read and is stated. That's my proposition.
I guess it's are you, like, do you understand this, I guess, would be my question to you, because I'm reading the bylaw. We're not litigating the bylaw itself. I think we're litigating whether or not the judgment is correct or not. So the bylaw says, it uses the word definitions, specifically within demolition, specifically within the definition of garbage. Section 2 of the bylaw defines garbage, lists various types of waste of waste it includes. Item D under this definition is construction and demolition wastes. This means that waste materials resulting from demolition activities are considered garbage under this bylaw and are subject to the rules regarding garbage accumulation, such as section 6.1, which states that garbage must not be allowed to accumulate upon a property. So that's from the bylaw itself.
Right. So what I'm submitting is that the very nature that I have to have, I already have a bylaw, or no, sorry, not a bylaw, an order from the city to acquire a permit for demolition, that it falls under anything within that fence falls in under that order. So when I get a permit for the demolition of the site, all debris within that site is removed, including asbestos. It's a wet tear down. So you're putting, not you, but I am put in a situation where safety health is at risk by submitting to a lower bylaw infraction.
Okay, and I bring in other if our bylaws are inconsistent, that's an issue, but have you applied for a development have you done an application for a development permit?
I can't do that because it's a wet tear down, so I have to contract it out to that. And that has been,
Have you done that?
I'm in the process of doing that. And-
What does that mean though?
Well, I already won an appeal weeks back against the same thing about not meeting a deadline for the permit. And the problem is that when it comes to wet tear downs and asbestos, the companies that do this are so super busy that even to get pricing and get them out there to quote has been a big issue. And then get it in their timeline to actually get them to get the permit and proceed to the demolition.
They do it in the summer, so I can give you that, because I know they
Yeah.
only do the wet tear down in the summers.
Right. And so
But we're not here to litigate higher or lower
No.
level of the bylaw right now. Like we're here to determine whether or not you were.
well, does that answer your question? As your question was, am I doing that? I'm saying, yes, I am doing that. I'm in the process of doing that. I do not have it as of today due to those circumstances.
Right, okay. Those special higher order rights might give you the
Right.
right to have this enclosed stuff.
Great, do we want questions of the
I don't
administration?
think I-
Well, we have to go through the process, Councilor Leroy, so, thank you, Jacob, we will come back to you. But I think we have some questions of the administration, and then you have an opportunity to come back.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
no
this.
problem.
So first, I'll just check with the gallery if there's anyone else here who wishes to speak in support of this appeal. Anybody in opposition? Anybody for information? Seeing none, Madam Chairperson.
Okay.
I mean, I've just a general question. On the reasonableness,
We just need some clarity on, I guess, the definition of garbage and accumulation
Oh.
of garbage.
I'm already happy with that.
So I think, Martin, you had some comments about that, and then I may ask some questions about like cleanliness of, sites in general, whether it's a demo site, construction site, or just a property that's been on fire. Generally speaking, is it as correct to assume that these sites should be kept in a clean and fashion, whether or not there's a fire, whether or not it's considered a demo site? Maybe it's kind of a long, couple of loaded question, but if you can
And I won't
clarify.
take up too much time. So, in our bylaw, it has a clear definition of garbages. And garbage is regardless of anything, the obligation falls to the property. Property owner talks about safety concerns, that's our bylaw. So if the property owner is saying that it's unsafe, we can write an order to the property owner to remedy them. It's incumbent on the property owner to do that. So again, back to the garbage, and again, Councillor Aller perfectly stated, is the garbage order was issued. We have not done enforcement. That would be the next step, right? We could write tickets, we can do cleanup, that sort of stuff. We have not done enforcement. Since March 9th, when the order was issued, and then back to April 9th when we showed up, and as it states in the bylaw to make sure that the sign is set up, we have pictures of that as well. Nothing was done. Nothing, snow has been gone, there's stuff outside the fence, stuff inside the fence. That's not relevant to our bylaw. The property is in its entirety and it's whole of the property lines. It's incumbent upon the property owner to remediate garbage on the property. And again, we've talked about it multiple times. There's branches, there's siding, there's cushions that you can see if you move the fence, you can actually from the sidewalk remove that. So there is stuff, and again, we talk about reasonableness. Well, reasonableness is doing something as well as a property owner. If you're doing something, we're not going to expect you to get in, bring in a front end loader to remove, 4 or 5 pop cans until it actually melts. But what we do expect is that you are attending your property, you are removing stuff that you can remove, and we're going on a month and a half now, right? Just sort of making that gradual effort and keeping the communication up with our officers or our office to say, hey, I'm going to need a little bit more time. We just had another snowstorm, right? Like stuff like that. So yes, there is reasonableness, but also too, from the councilor's perspective, you have to understand that we have not taken any other steps on this property. And then just final thought, it's not a demo site. It's a burnt out building that has a fence around it, that has garbage on the property. That's what the order was issued.
Clarity, you guys are good? Okay, we have an opportunity for the appellant to come back and speak in rebuttal, and no new information is allowed.
If you'd like to come back, sir.
That's what Jason says.
I simply just contest that it's not a demo site, first and foremost. It is certainly a demo site, because it is, the city has, and this is above his head, or a different department, has deemed it as such and needs to be demolished. That is a separate issue that is being followed, and in their eyes, it most certainly is a demo site. Second of all, sorry.
May I ask? about that?
Let him finish his presentation.
Yeah,
Counselor.
Thank you.
Second of all, the stuff contained within the fence, I think is a separate issue from outside the fence. If the work order is still open, again, there is, I need to be able to communicate with the bylaw department, and they need to be able to communicate with me. And so I'm willing to still work. This has never been the issue. To get the stuff outside of the fence cleared out as soon as possible, I can do it. The fact is that this was set up as an appeal, and so anything done after today is fair game. Anything before that is I was unaware that would have had one way to do with anything one way or the other, because it still rests on the fact that it is a demolition site, and the fencing does contain garbage. The garbage that is in there, although today it may be able to be removed because of the weather, and if that is deemed the case, then I will comply. However, the assertion that it is up to me to provide a safe environment or whatever, like, the weather is outside of my control. If there's ice and snow in there, I'm not I guess barring taking a flamethrower and melting everything so that it can be, it's unreasonable. And because there is asbestos on the site, that's a little bit different than having other lower safety concerns at play. And so, regardless of of the outcome here today, what I'm asking for is, if this is the case, is to continue. I'll work with Anthony or whoever else would take on the case to get what certainly needs to be done right away out. And if it's deemed that whatever's in the fence is garbage, that there be an extension of time to be able to address that as a result. That's not what I'm arguing here, though, today. And but at the same time, I'm not trying to impede any progress on having a site that's clean and whatnot. I just feel that there's another department that I'm dealing with that addresses all of this. And again, I am a taxpayer. I'm a landlord. I take care of my stuff. But when there's three different departments at me at the same time, and one is overlapping with another, it gets a little bit frustrating to realize, like, okay, so I can't seem to win here. Although in the latter case, I've already won on an appeal. But this is a dynamic situation, not a static one, and I'm more than willing to work continuously if this order is still open. But I felt that this my case should be heard and the nuances of it explained, and hopefully I can have a reprieve on the 250 and start getting the stuff on the outside of the fence taken care of right away.
Thank you.
No, sure, I just have one question.
Okay.
Just that's for the, yes.
Sorry.
So the only documentation other than your testimony that I can find saying this is a demolition site is your testimony. Like, I'm wondering why there would be no, if this is a core part of your argument regarding the stuff inside the fence, which does not address the other stuff. But if we were to consider even the stuff inside the fence, other than your testimony, there's nothing about this being a demolition site.
Well, I'd also rebut that Martin is just making a statement as well, that
Chair,
it's a
I just wanna
house,
say-
that it's a burnt house with a fence around it, like, then we can get back and forth on definitions. Although, look, yes, that's right, I have dealt with I believe it's the city of planning, that order that has deemed it as such, and that's why I need a permit, to achieve a wet demolition on the property itself, right? So from that standpoint, I'd have to ask, maybe you do or don't know, from the city planning perspective, if that is the case.
We're only considering the stuff that's in front of us today.
Right. So, but you being in the industry and hopefully, again, I'd have to rely on your knowledge of that, but I don't have it to present. I can just certainly stand behind that testimony, absolutely. But it's neither can it be just assumed that it's a burnt house with a fence around it, and that's it. Otherwise, the city would not have required me to get a demolition permit for a demolition that requires a demolition of the site. It's a demolition site if I need a permit to demolish it, right? And there's fencing around it. So it's more or less just a battle of terms here at this point for that, on that regard.
Okay, that's my question. Thanks.
Right. If someone's ready to move motions,
I move the receipt of public representations be concluded,
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried.
that the appeal be denied and ordered bylaw officer, in the order of the bylaw officer, community service department be confirmed.
All those in favor?
Aye. And do I need supporting?
No, you don't need.
Okay.
You can if you want, but.
No, just, I do think it's, I just want to put on there, because I get a lot of these buildings, and I do think the onus is on the owner to clean up inside it. And I think that our bylaw officers are more than willing to work with people on it, but I saw a garbage can that easily could just be pulled out. I saw garbage that easily can be pulled out, siding. I saw tree branches that could catch on fire. So I really think that the owner could have done better due diligence on the inside of the fence as well as the outside of the fence to help protect it from further fire loss. And so that's my argument.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that the appeal hearing be concluded.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Please note that the committee has made a final decision on this matter, which is not subject to further appeal.
Just looking at the time, do we need a 5-minute
Yeah.
bio break?
Yeah,
Okay,
bio
we'll
break.
do a quick 5-minute bio break and then we'll move into our regular agenda, which is delegations and reports. All right, good morning and welcome back to the Standing Policy Committee on Community Services for April 15th. We just finished the appeals. We're moving on to our regular agenda, and first up is we have a delegation. I'm gonna try to say this name. Nanzitsia Massey, Acting Chair of the Winnipeg Public Library Board. Please welcome, have a seat at the end. And if you can pronounce your name for us, it'd be greatly appreciated.
You know what, when you have a name like that, you get used to, however, I always know it's me when someone hesitates before reading the name, so that's helpful. It's Nunziata Massey, and good morning, councillors and Madam Chair. I'm the acting chair, as has already been stated, of the Winnipeg Public Library Board. Thank you for allowing me to come to speak today and provide our annual report and audited financial statements for the 2024 year. First and foremost, the Winnipeg Public Library Board thanks Mayor and Council of the City of Winnipeg for their vision and continued commitment to supporting the work of our public libraries. The city's capital and operating budgets have been instrumental in providing valuable library programs and services to the citizens of Winnipeg. The Winnipeg Public Library Board would like to acknowledge the ongoing financial support provided by City Council in the amount of $71,384, a very specific number. The annual operating grant has helped the library board in its work and in providing support to the 5 library advisory committees, also commonly referred to as LACs. So if I say LAC later on in my presentation, that's what you mean, or what I mean. So in terms of activities, the activities that were done over the 2024 year were quite similar to what they were in 2023. There is the annual Ontario Library Association Conference, and in January of 2024, our then chair, Linda English, attended. This is the largest Canadian library conference that there is, and having a member of the board attend helps enhance our knowledge and bring that back to the Winnipeg Public Library Board, share with members in our vision for the libraries. In addition, in March of 2024, a delegation appeared at EPC advocating for our 2024 operating grant. And so that was part of the delegations that we did. We also, in March of last year, held an annual, as we always do, library board and LAC committee member orientation. In fact, our 2025 LAC was just held this weekend, and I think Councillor Dobson for his attendance there. As it was this year, last year it was held as a hybrid, so in person and remotely. We encourage participants to attend in person if they can, but recognize there are some challenges to doing so. So we do offer that hybrid option, as most of us do after COVID, realizing that, you know, Zoom isn't so scary after all. This last year's, however, was the first in-person meeting option available since the pandemic. And so we're happy to move back to that as being an option. And it was well attended. That meeting last year was held at the St. Boniface Library. And so we thank the St. Boniface Library staff for hosting us last year. In addition, in December of 2024, unfortunately, a delegation couldn't attend at SPC, but a letter was written to SPC with advice and suggestions regarding the community connection space at the Millennium Library. We've also held regular board meetings. Most of those were remote or hybrid, but we did have the privilege of attending a couple of branches last year in person, St. John's, Transcona, and Harvey Smith. And so we thank again those libraries for allowing us to use their space. In terms of funding, we have continued to fund the Writer in Residence program, which we have done for many years. And we've continued to fund other consumable supplies for library locations. So a bit of background there is there was a pilot project some years ago where the city was where the city provided consumable supplies, in particular feminine hygiene products, at selected locations. Of the Winnipeg Public Libraries, only Millennium was selected for that project. And I believe that's continuing to date, but it's not looking to expand at the present time. And the board supplements that and provides funding for those supplies to be provided at all other branch locations. And so the board really values that as an initiative that reduces barriers for individuals, particularly needing feminine hygiene products, but other consumables where that need arises. And so we're committed to continuing in that support until such time as that is part of the regular operating budget. The other thing that the Winnipeg Library continued to fund is the World Storytelling Program and the World Languages Program. So they're two separate programs. They're sort of similar. World Storytelling tells stories from other cultures. World Languages tells stories in those other languages. It's programming intended mainly for children and families, but it's something that was launched a couple of years ago at a board member's suggestion and has been extended since then. In terms of LAC updates, so the LACs represent 5 separate carving out of the city of Winnipeg of different communities in the city. These are Assiniboia, City Centre, East Kildonan, Transcona, Lord Selkirk, West Kildonan, and Riel. And so their activities range, and the level of their activity ranges as well. So some of the things that the LACs do is they'll attend outreach events where they garner support and feedback from members of the community about libraries. They have hosted drop-in tables. They've attended and engaged in library board meetings. As they report to the board, they have a presence at those board meetings. The EKT LAC in particular has been very active in different events that they've been holding to engage people in the community, in particular the teenagers in the community, with their work. To conclude our annual report, we want to take time to acknowledge and thank many people. First of all, we'd like to thank the members of Standing Policy Committee for their continued support and discussions about the library. We'd also like to thank Councillor Santos and Councillor Wyatt for being engaged during important discussions and topics. We thank Councillor Santos in particular for attending in person to the St. John's and Harvey Smith Library for our meetings. Your participation, advice, and support of public libraries and the board is invaluable. We welcome back Councillor Wyatt and Councillor Dobson, who I've had the pleasure of meeting most recently at a couple of meetings we've had for the 2024 and 2025 year. We look forward to working with both of you and receiving your guidance and advice as well. We'd also like to thank many city staff, specifically City Clerk Departments, Ms. McMillan, Mr. Prinsloo, and Ms. Newton for all their guidance and support that they provided to our assistant in 2024 and the beginning of 2025. We'd also like to acknowledge and thank the support from all the committee clerks and their staff. We also like to thank Karen Borland, Manager of Library Services, for her leadership and all of her information and guidance and support provided during our board meetings. We'd also like to thank the dedicated Winnipeg Public Library staff for their excellent service, program and outreach delivery and innovation. Annabelle Perez, our administrative assistant, who is invaluable and a resource and prepared the document that I'm reading for everybody today, as well as Kim Schwalak, our accountant, who has been with the board prior to her time as an accountant as a board member and has continued on for many, many years and has provided her assistance. And also all of the LAC members for their continued support within the board meetings and within the community. A copy of our financial statements for 2024 have been provided for your review. And I think that is the end of it, but other than to say thank you again, and we hope that we will be able to continue for many years on this board so that the city of Winnipeg and its library users can fully enjoy all the great things that libraries have to offer. I am available for questions if there are any. Yes?
Yeah, go right ahead.
First of all, I just want to thank you very much and all the work you do. I'm really enjoying the work that our boards and our committees do, and I don't think we appreciate them enough. You are the guidance for our city, and so I like that you're lending that voice on how important libraries are. So thank you very much for that. And my question is, I'm really interested in the work that EKT,
Yeah, East Kildonan and Transcona.
yeah, is doing to bring youth into the libraries. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so they had done, and I can pull up my notes because there was a little bit more detail on there. So they had done a teen spring quiz, particularly in the hopes to engage teens to learn more about the library. I've heard anecdotally about how important it is to bring different groups in and how, it just takes one person to notice something that might be helpful to bring community in. There was an anecdote, and I'm not going to remember what library that this was, but I believe it was one of the EKT LAC members who told me about this at the recent annual meeting, saying, a library staff person noticed teenagers hanging out and thought, why don't we just upgrade our electrical ports to have USBs so they can charge their phones there? Little things like that community and staff can come together and make sure that people see libraries as a home and valuable place for everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No?
Just general question. I see that there's up to 6 member citizens per LAC. Are they mostly full?
Pardon me? Are they mostly
I see.
full?
Yeah. Are the other LACs? I mean, you may not have that information, but are they mostly full with 6 citizen appointments, or are they looking for more?
So what I understand is that there is more desire for people to be appointed to the Winnipeg Public Library Board, and so that's rather competitive in terms of the city appointments to the board. And I think that for the LACs, it depends on which LAC. And so I couldn't tell you exactly if they are all complete, but I do know that we need to advocate particularly for people to put their name forward for some of the LACs that are less active.
Okay.
But that's an appointment that's done by city.
Yeah, we do that. Okay.
All right. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no other delegations, looking to the crowd. Okay, we will move on to our reports. Up first is the Winnipeg Public Library Board 2024 annual report. That was it?
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll just ask for a mover.
Unless there's anything further, I can come back.
No, I think we're just gonna move it for information.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so Councillor Gilroy moves it, item number 1 for information. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's carried. Okay, moving on to verbal report, east of the red recplex, we have Mr. Kyle. Welcome and congratulations on,
Thank you very much, Council.
when's your last date?
May 30th.
May 30th? Oh, you're still with us for a while.
This year.
Oh my gosh.
You're still with us for a bit.
And thank you so much for all your service.
Yes,
You've been here for
absolutely.
a long time. You've been through a lot of it. So just
Very-
thank you for that.
Always good to be busy. So councillors, yeah, this is our verbal report. So the project is proceeding and we're coming to the end of the preliminary design. So the consultant is currently will be installing a sign on the property this spring. So that's been an ongoing issue. So there'll be likely multiple signs that will be on the property, slightly smaller than what council had indicated through the direction, but there'll be multiple signs. We'll be looking at renderings and some additional information on site. So that should be complete this spring. We've engaged another consultant to assist us. This building will be a net zero property that we're designing. So we're certainly through the initial processes, we have consultants that will help us with some of the net zero component designs and how we would commission such a building should the council determine to fund it in the future. So in terms of key dates, we're looking to have the final submission from the consultant of their class 3 estimate. Should be coming at the end of this month. Then there'll be about 2 more weeks for the final preliminary design documents to be submitted to the city. And then we'll be proceeding in early parts of May to review the cost 3 estimate and produce a draft report. So for you, we had indicated, so last year when we provided a schedule to you, we indicated that we would produce a report by Q2 of this year. So we're probably going to be about a month behind. So that would be June. We'll be probably into July before our report would come to you, but it certainly will be part of the 2026 budget process. So the intent was to provide you an in-year estimate of the class 3 work on the facility, what it would potentially cost. We've got a class 5 estimate of $90 million that was done in the preliminary work. So we're continuing to design, get to a class 3, but the class 3 in this volatile time is probably only good for, I would say, up to maybe 6 months to a year. So I would caution nowadays, the construction market is very volatile, and with the specter of tariffs, et cetera, can change pricing. So we're proceeding with it, and there'll be a report to council indicating class 3 in very near future.
Question with respect to pricing.
Yep.
If adjustments need to be made, it doesn't come to this committee, right? Does it go to finance or property and development?
So any budget submission, this committee, you'll have the jurisdiction on the costing of the project. So through community services budget submission, you'll determine what the approved budget and scope of this project will be. And if there's a change in that, it would come back to your committee. So there's lots of nuances. If we would proceed to award projects, we would proceed through property. Once it's, as long as we're within budget, we would proceed to award through the SBC property. But if we're not on budget, we would come back to this committee to determine scope and cost. So that's where it comes. And at that point, like, given that the cost, that would be a major capital project in excess of 25 million and would have an advisory committee commissioned and regular reporting to SBC Finance under the current processes.
Any questions? I think I saw Dobson, Gilroy, and then Laura. No, you're good. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Gilroy.
Oh, go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, because we're gonna have a kind of two recplexes happening in the south and the east. Is there some kind of general, making sure that they're both kind of somewhat equal, that there's a balance, you know?
Maybe I'll defer to
Okay.
community services, so certainly the scope of these two projects are different. So if you're referring to, say, the South Winnipeg Recreation Campus,
Yeah,
that project has a different scope than the East of the Red Recplex. The East of the Red, so with the South Winnipeg Recreation Campus includes 3 gymnasiums, multipurpose room, a spray pad, and a walking track, and a few other kind of minor amenities. This is a more significant project, which includes aquatics, includes a new indoor pool facility. So there'll be significant price differences between the two.
so there's no aquatics in the south?
That would be in a future phase.
In the future phase.
An arena, a library are all part of future phases in that Southwest campus project.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Um, so I understand the 89 million, that's from 2023 original,
That's correct.
okay. And I mean,
At a class 5, sorry.
at a class 5?
Yep.
And we're still at that for class 5, and we're expecting class 3?
Yep, we've been working to do the preliminary design, so advanced class 5s are based on less than 1% project definition design.
Mhm.
Class 3 will be based on at least 30% design of the building.
Right.
So that's determined to be suitable for budget submission, so we'll be advancing to that tighter class estimate.
And in the case of the South Winnipeg Rec campus, I recall there was a change in required budget that was significant.
That's correct.
What were the timelines on that? Was it also 2023 for the original?
Nope, the council approved the South Winnipeg Rec Campus at a class 3 for submission to the ISAC program in 2019. Then it came back from the province and revised the scope of work in 2020, which added the vocational building and a childcare facility to that building, fully paid for by the province. And then so that's 2020, and we never received the final contribution agreement till late 2021. So it almost took 3 years from council approving the original project to actually getting approval for the money. So.
And then what was I recall having voted on a report to increase the funding.
Yes.
So what was the difference from the original to the?
I believe the additional funds that were requested to maintain the original scope of work was approximately $23 million worth of additional debt that was approved to maintain the original scope.
Around 20%?
Basically, yes. Yep. The original value of the work was 89 million or so.
But that's 20%, and the delay was how long in the cost estimate to the?
Well, from 2019 to 2021, and then design up, then further work on the design till late 2022 to 2023, and then we took almost a 6-month plus pause while we brought the additional cost to council and waited for a decision.
Okay. The other question I have is the council is hiring a construction officer. Will there be any relationship between that person and this project?
Oh, I would suggest definitely. So Tom Sparrow, the chief construction officer, started this month.
Yeah.
I've engaged in significant meetings with Tom and brought him into all of the projects that I'm involved with as well. I know he's meeting, I think, with Water and Waste today. So he's definitely being brought into all the construction projects, and certainly his experience and perspective will be of value to the city. So he'll definitely be part of this project.
And then in terms of funding, how much is actually approved by budgets and how much is forecasted for this project?
So
For East of the Red.
East of
East of the red flags, yeah.
Well, what's been approved by council, I believe, is
15.
15 million in 2027.
Okay.
So, yeah, 15 million, so That's in addition to the 2 million that's being used to fund our preliminary design right now. So
Okay, so what about projections?
there's
Unfunded.
yeah, it's all one.
It's unfunded?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that answers my question. I'm always interested in scope. I guess maybe community services can. Well. Maybe respond. So the scope here relative to the south Recplex is different.
Yes.
So is this flowing out of the departmental recommendations on what's required in this area?
Well, yes and no. I mean, with South Winnipeg, we had to expropriate land, right? There's nothing out in that particular area that the city of Winnipeg owns on a recreation and leisure perspective. So, the opportunity came up. There is a need for gymnasium space, community space, arenas, pools, and a library, all in that space. And so we have to do it in phases, whereas the east of the Redplex, we already own that land because the Transcona Library was built on that space a number of years ago. So, and it was built with the full intention of a rec, a leisure center being attached to it. So the library is already there.
Yeah.
And then the gymnasium and pool space will go there. There's not going to be any indoor rinks at South Winnipeg. So it's just different because there's no need for necessarily the rinks. I'm not gonna say there's always need for rinks because everybody wants the same ice from 4 o'clock to 10. But that wasn't the priority in the east of the Red. It was gym space, fitness, the library's already there. So the needs are different.
I'm just looking at we mentioned the amenities for the south of the Recplex. What are they for the east of the Red?
So so maybe from our original report, so that was the original feasibility study was 92,000 square foot facility, which included an aquatic facility, 2 gymnasiums, a multi-purpose room, activity spaces, community kitchen, indoor track, movement studios, and accessible change rooms and fitness space, all designed as the directors indicated, connected to the Transcona Library.
That sounds like today's dollars.
So in comparison, South Winnipeg, what we're building is 3 gymnasiums, a fitness space, a fitness room, multi-purpose space, and a walking track.
So scope is bigger. Smaller.
The scope is bigger and different. It's going to,
The scope is bigger than Transcona.
yes, in terms of monetary value, yes.
It is because it's got the pool.
And then we already know that the south flex is ballpark 120 million. And the scope for this is probably bigger than that. I know I'm inferring from,
There's definitely going to be, it's been, I'm trying to remember when the last pool was in the city, so it's probably.
Cindy Clausen, I think was the last.
That's the outdoor aquatic facility.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're talking to the indoor pool, it's been, it's possibly more. Like it's
Maybe.
almost back to the 70s.
Cindy Clausen predates Mervyn Rec.
I'd have to look back. I know that Civic Center is 65 in that pool, and that's been rehabilitated multiple times. So I'd have to confirm, but it's been decades since the city's built a new indoor pool. So it's definitely going to be a new construction project for the city of Winnipeg, just something we haven't done for a number of years.
And it's hard to know what it's gonna cost because we haven't done it for so long.
Just,
Yep, that's
so, just out of curiosity, so why has one got 3 gymnasiums and the other one only has 2? Like, why aren't we building? 'Cause it is kind of a need.
There was a lot of, debate and interest, and we did a lot of stakeholder engagement.
Right.
With the community. Councillor Lukes has been heavily involved in all of those conversations. And there is just a real need for gymnasium space.
But not in the east.
Well, I'm not saying it's not either, it's just
No.
that this is the space we have to work with,
Okay.
right? Like,
So it
so,
would be like the space that we actually have to build it might not be enough to add another gym in
Yeah.
there.
but Transcona, East Caledonia, in that area where the east of the Redplex is going to be, there are a number of schools and a number of, community centers that do have gymnasium space. I mean, the issue we have with a lot of the community centers is they're not as large, or the ceilings are not as high as we would like them be for functionality purposes. But yeah, there was debate over even 4 gymnasiums at South Winnipeg at some point. But I think that was maybe even the original plan, but we couldn't fund it. So then we had to scale it back to the 3.
Is it by a major transit route?
Is it by
Is it close to
transit route?
The east of what's on Transcona
Oh,
Boulevard.
Transcona is,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is,
Yeah,
yeah.
Transcona is,
And then
sorry.
even the
Looking
bike
between the
path.
2
Yes.
projects.
Yeah.
And it's got active transportation.
It's got active transportation.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, you're good. All right, thank you. Motion to receive it as information, verbal report for information. Counselor Allard moves motion to receive the verbal report. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. Moving on to the next verbal report, implementing a new bike registration system and bike theft prevention programs.
Yeah, so
Yes.
joining me is Terry Cormier.
Hello, Terry. Welcome.
Winston is on vacation. So we're tag teaming all this. All right, so verbal report on November 23rd, 2023, council concurred in the recommendation to approve the use of 529 garage be endorsed as the city's preferred bike registry. And at that time, in November 2023, the public service was directed to provide a verbal report to this committee in the April 2025 standing policy committee meeting. So this is where we're at. So the primary goal of the bike registration program is essentially to successfully return stolen or lost bikes to their rightful owners by establishing a streamlined and secure method for bike owners to register their bicycles. This enables the authorities to track the stolen bicycles, return lost bikes to their owners, and provide users with a reliable and user-friendly platform for registration. So as part of the implementation of the report that was approved in November 2023, the Licensing and Bylaw Enforcement Division of Community Services continues to provide key support in the administration, field operations, promotion, bike recovery, and storage. It also takes the lead in returning stolen bikes through the 529 garage system, which is a free bicycle registration service. So 529 Garage is a mobile and web-based platform that enables bike owners to register their bicycles in a global database, upload images, and notify others if their bike is stolen. So this complimentary registration service helps the Winnipeg Police Service further their own crime prevention initiatives and conduct proactive enforcement. It also allows both licensing and bylaw enforcement and the Winnipeg Police Service to identify and return recovered stolen bikes to their rightful owners. So over the last year, the program's made some significant progress in a few key areas. In April 2024, licensing and bylaw entered into an agreement with 529 so that we could access the Winnipeg registration data. Licensing and bylaw enforcement also promoted the new bike registration program through a number of multiple avenues, including media releases, a social media campaign, website information, emails to all the past registrants on how to register with 529. The Licensing and Bylaw Enforcement Services Division participated in a number of community events, engaged in over 250 interactions to assist with bike registrations, distributed free shields, and encouraged residents to register their bikes. They also engaged with several bike shops during August and September of last year, distributing 10 retail starter kits to help integrate the bike registrations into their stores. Winnipeg Police Service, on the other hand, has also successfully completed a number of actions in support of the program. So Winnipeg Police Service had 3 specific events regarding the 529 garage, registering bikes and making the public aware. They had 529 garage pamphlets at all the events, but they had booths that they had set up and distributed those. They've worked with our bicycle recovery officer. They've checked all the serial numbers from the 529 garage in our reporting system and was able to find owners of 27 bikes, which had been recovered by the bicycle recovery branch, but had not been registered on 529. So
How many?
that was 27 bikes. WPS has several units implementing the 529 Garage Police app. And they are finding it helpful when trying to determine if a bicycle is stolen. Certainly, as more people register their bikes with 529, the WPS will be more successful at verifying the status of bicycles they deal with on a day-to-day basis. So some key outcomes of the program from December 31st, let's just say January 2024 to the end of 2024, the number of bicycles registered with 529 in Winnipeg is 6,325. And the bicycles recovered by the bicycle recovery branch is 681. Returns made by the WPS using the Project 529 only, there was 29. Returns made by the public was 12. And total returns to owners made by bicycle recovery were 64. So in total, returns made by the bicycle recovery unit, WPS, and the public using all the various systems, there was 105 bikes that were returned to their owners in 2024. So moving forward, our next steps are the continued promotion of the program and continued outreach to increase public participation, including partnerships with local schools, bike clubs, bike stores, and city events. So in 2025, our bicycle recovery officer will be attending several events, including their bike bazaar events that's organized by Wrench in collaboration with Public Works. There's a number of various Bike Week events, working in partnership with Bike Winnipeg, the Bike Theft Awareness Day in Sabin Hill Mall that's occurring in May, and some other upcoming events yet to be scheduled in partnership with the Winnipeg Police Department. The expected outcomes overall of using the 529 garage system is essentially to increase the recovery rate of stolen bikes, improved communication engagement, community engagement in bike safety initiatives, and enhancing law enforcement capabilities in managing bike-related incidents. So this program set to foster a safe and more responsible biking environment for all members of the community. And the annual bike auction, we have it every year, is fast approaching, and it is the online viewing and bidding will run from April 24th, which starts next week, to May 1st. And there's approximately 200 bikes that are going to be tuned up and ready to ride, courtesy of Wrench Volunteers and Mechanics Project. Any questions?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner. So just so we've provided some funding to this app to allow people to register for free. Is that how it works? Go ahead.
Correct, yeah, we receive administrative rights through 529 to access their database. So the registration is through 529.
Okay, so and then just because we've paid for the service, so it's free for people to register.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
I'm looking on the 529 website and I see that there's 6 bike shops listed in Winnipeg. And that's great. So if I buy a bicycle there, I'm sure it'll be registered. But if I buy my bike at another place, okay, Tire, Walmart, wherever, where's the protection there?
So we engage with the Canadian Tires and Walmarts and try and provide as much advertising as possible, whether it be bike hangers advising of how to register your bike with 529 Garage. Not all bike retailers register bikes at the time of purchase. It's not mandatory for them to do so. However, we strongly encourage it and are trying to build further relationships with all bike retail centers to identify the positive nature of registering your bike at the point of sale.
So it's ongoing.
Sorry,
It's ongoing then.
it's on,
And hopefully everybody will be on board at some point,
fingers crossed.
both.
It's a work in progress, but I could say, looking at the numbers, it was very promising to see over 6,325 new registrations through the 529 app since we started this initiative. So when I looked at that number, I thought that's pretty good. Prior to 2024, 529 it was just under or just over 2,000 bike registries. So 529's been around for a long time. We just started endorsing it as
And now it's exploded for registrations.
exactly.
A further question, so if bike is on the side of the road and we pick it up, we actually look at the serial number and check?
Correct.
Okay, so we do. All right.
So we have a bicycle recovery officer that does that. So whether if it could be a call from 311 to come and pick up a bike, it could be the Winnipeg Police Service picking it up, which in turn we would come and pick it up from the police service. It could be various methods in regards to how we're obtaining bicycles. So there's kind of three things we look at when we recover a bike. One would be through the police system. One would be through our old bicycle registration system that we've committed to using for the next 2 years. And then the third system would be the 529 system, which seems to be the most accurate system to help us return bikes. And once again, you could even look at how many bikes we returned this year versus previous years, 105. Now, that 105 number also includes the Winnipeg Police Service and the public returning bikes, because they'll have access through the new system to only 22 and 23, 12 in 2022, and 15 in 2021, to a jump of 105. Or we could look at it at just 64 bikes returned directly from our bicycle recovery officer. So it looks like it's working, and it looks like it's a little bit easier to connect those bikes that we're recovering.
So if I find a bike.
Go ahead.
Sorry, if I find a bike, I can just put it in this app and it'll tell me who the owner is?
There is a process within the app that you would be able to email. If you punch in the number, it wouldn't give you the details of who the owner is, but it would give you a direct email address to that person to be able to connect it back to that. So
Or
it's
you-
multiple avenues.
Okay,
Or you could call 311.
yeah,
Bicycle recovery, can pick it up and then you all have usage.
okay, and let them do the work.
Just, it's possible. Sure, so I know the emphasis is to be, to have people voluntarily, participate, but would there not be opportunities to have, say, the third parties that we deal with, make it a condition of sale? Like I see like unclaimed bicycle auction with the Winnipeg Police, donation via the wrench. I guess those are the two main streams, and disposal if they're not recyclable.
So I could speak to the auction. So this year we are providing the opportunity for people to register directly with 529. In addition to that, we're going to be providing free shields to bikes that are purchased at the auction. So I think that speaks to one of your suggestions to say, how do we work free shield? So there's two parts to 529. You could register for free. And then in addition, there's, this is where a fee of service comes in by 529. You could purchase a shield that goes on your bike that you're able to scan it easier to be able to check if it's stolen. So that's an additional service that 529 provides, but there's a cost associated with it. It's about $15 retail. We're able to secure them a little bit cheaper at, I think it's $3.50 or $4 per shield, that we use at promotional events, and or in this case, we're going to be using them at the auction.
What's the scan? What kind of scan is it?
It's basically just a barcode.
It's a barcode.
Scan, and it will bring up all the information that in particular. So it's a little bit easier, and instead of having to find the serial number, go through that process, so on and so forth.
So we are providing the shield for free? No.
Not through all registrations, just through our promotional activities. So that was part of the budget that we provided last year. So as an example, last year we registered 261 bikes at various events throughout the season. And of those events, we provided 113 free shields. So we had a little bit of budget for promotional things to buy some shields to put them on.
Okay, so I'll repose my question. The shields sound great, but why would we not impose as a condition of disposal to third parties, whether it's the police through their auction or via the wrench, the obligation of registration with every bike that goes out? Like, there's like 900 bicycles a year that are potentially, well, they're being repurposed. There's 1,000 bikes a year stolen, right? 10% are returned. 900 are left. Anyway, whatever the number is, why would we not ask them to make
Right.
registration?
And the bikes that are going to
Compulsory.
auction are being, but we're not making it compulsory. We're
No.
making it as a recommendation to say, please go to 529. So we're providing literature to all the bikes that are purchased at auction to go to 529 and register. And then plus we added an additional perk that what we're saying is if you register your bike, let us know and we'll provide you with a free shield to put on the bike as well too. So I think we're slowly starting the process of trying to identify the benefits of registering your bike. And so we're not requiring it, we're not making them to do it, but we're strongly encouraging people to do it.
What if we, I don't know, there were an incentive of some sort? I'm just, it'd be, do we know how many of the bikes end up being registered out of the auction and out of the wrench? Presumably the wrench is, I mean, just knowing some of the people involved doing pretty well on this.
It's
Stats.
like it was a little bit different with our old registry system because we had access to register the bikes after the auction. So the auction would occur, we would receive the information, we would pre-register the bikes. Now with it being a third party, what we could really do is encourage them to register and to provide them with a perk and free sticker to be able to go ahead and do that. And to kind of explain to them why it's important to be able to register your bike there.
I'm just thinking, what if we gave 10% off of a bike that's registered through the system through the police auction?
Not that loud.
Like, that's not a human rights issue because somebody can choose to participate or not participate.
I think Councillor Lawler.
I see a tie there where there's not, I think many of us don't want to impose this on everyone, but if there's a link to the city, there's staff that are picking up bikes, police are picking up bikes, there's a cost to all this, there's time associated, and presumably if there's a higher participation rate in the system where we have a direct connection with, I don't know, it seems to me we should have a tie there.
I see a motion.
I definitely like the thinking and we went through multiple kind of thoughts in regards to how we could ensure that these bikes are going to be registered with 529.
Yeah.
And with it just being a little bit of a different system and with the city only endorsing the bike registry system, there's some information transfer that we had to be pretty careful with. Once again, very simple when it was our own registry because we're able to do it. With it being a third party now registry, it's a little bit more complicated for us just to register the bike on their behalf versus them registering it themselves. So I think we need to look at some further options for future auctions, most definitely. Our solution was let's provide information, let's provide, additional perk of providing a free shield. Sorry.
Madam Chair, would there, it sounds to me like there's openness from the public service to, I don't know, to look into options. Would the public service want to report back on this in terms of speaking to the police and their auction and seeing if there's a way of being more encouraging with people?
And just to
Other
clarify,
than just the carrot of the shield, because that requires a follow-up, I think.
yeah, and just to clarify, it's LB actually does the auction. So the police service, they don't do the auction, they do the.
Also, then our conversations with the third party. Could options be considered to increase compliance, to increase participation in? I'm thinking 10% off, you register your bike on site before you walk away with it, something like that.
And I think we've got the authority to do
Yeah.
that, right? So, if you would like, we can come back with the
Verbal?
auction is already scheduled, right? It's in May.
It's right away, actually. It's April 24th, so it's a week or so away. So I
Yeah.
don't think we would be able to do it for this year.
Yeah.
Because things are moving, promotions are out and everything's kind of moving with the direction we went in this year. But for next year, by all means, if there's a better solution of ensuring that those 700, 600, 500 bikes
Yeah.
that are going to auction are automatically pre-registered through 529, or if there's a way we could ensure that the number of bikes are registered. It will be interesting to see the statistical information after the auction. So a couple months down the road to look at, okay, so this year we sold 450 bikes of that, or 550 bikes of that 550. Number one, how many people registered?
Yeah.
And number two, how many people bought in and requested the free sticker that we're promoting this year?
So how about a motion to report back a couple months on stats and options to increase participation?
Or we could just do, you can trust us and we will work on and figure out how we can further promote. And we can do another verbal report back this time next year, or even a month earlier with the stats, or at the end of December with some stats. And
Sure, in the
some
summer.
Okay,
other
that'd be
other things that we may be.
It's just, it's nice to have a back and forth. It's
Or
not- I mean, I don't wanna impugn the public services, excellent, public service. I do also enjoy or think that there's value in having conversations that are public between the public service and city councilors, and sometimes just shining a light on something, solutions come up. So yeah, December would be great.
Our goal is
Okay.
definitely what your goal is.
Yes.
I understand.
This year it was
Yeah.
more just of an issue of privacy and needing to relook at our privacy impact statement, the program as a whole, and to try and identify how we could kind of do it.
And sometimes if we can air it out in a community setting like this one, things are clear for everybody, right?
Yeah, so we can come back. Actually, I would suggest instead of April, because we want a full year of stats, we want to be able to talk about what we have done, lessons learned, other promotions, other engagements, other things that we may be able to do on our own and together with WPS, and do a full report back on a year of stats.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do that in February of next year, or January. Well, no, we can't.
So before the next option?
Yes,
It would be-
yes,
Right.
yes.
It's also
yes.
just talking about it helps the program.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if a reporter happens to write about it, then we're all the better for it, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Get full stats for the full year. Will we get those within the month of January?
The nice thing with 529 is the stats are.
They're live.
So they're live.
Okay.
Now, the trick would be the stats we're talking about specifically about the auction and the bikes that were sold at the auction. How do we determine that stat that out of those bikes, which ones were registered, number one, and then number two, how many did we provide shields?
well, presumably we know how to do that because we're providing shields to those who've done it, right?
So a January or February next year before the
For
auction.
the action, sounds great.
Okay, and verbal.
Yeah,
Is that fine? Yeah, okay.
Okay, so the motion is number one, to receive this verbal report as information, and then number two, that the public service be directed to report back to this committee in February of 2026 with updated statistics of bike registry participation.
colleagues?
Well, wasn't there something else you added about promoting it? And what was the other language?
Well, I mean, I was being prescriptive, which is not necessarily my role here, but like I was thinking, for example, in making the sale at bike auction with the third party be tied to a refund to a rebate to the person that is making the purchase if they register with the system.
So how about we can leave it open-ended, as you said, without being too prescriptive, but we will look into that further. But we will come back with all the promotions that we've done and statistics and kind of our next steps. Information about the leading up to
So down promotion,
That's good.
next steps. Okay,
It's
perfect.
like if they're in our hands, the Scottish way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor of the amending motion moved by Councillor Matt Allard?
Aye.
Aye. And that's it. That's carried.
And a motion to receive the verbal report?
Yeah, we did that already. Yeah.
So,
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, so moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned at 11:04. Thank you, councillors.
Yeah, thanks for us.